Hey there, little shits, and welcome to Horrorphobia, a spooky movie review podcast for the horror lovers and the horrorphobics alike. I'm your host, Jake. Next to me is my wife, Emily.
Hello.
Across the internet, we have our friend Ryan,
Hello.
and all the way across the slutty internet, we have our friends Ian and Jake.
Hello.
Hail and well met.
And I guess the even sluttier internet, we also have a guest on the show, Parker.
Nice. I was hoping I'd be a part of the slutty stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Hell yeah, dude. So slutty.
He's all slutted up. All right. We are a group of lifelong friends who review horror movies. Why horror movies? Because I love them.
And I hate them.
We have a great episode for you today. On this episode, we will be reviewing 2018's Hereditary. First, first we will do our movie synopsis, our spoiler-free review. Then we'll get everyone's score for the film. We review on a scale 1 to 10, 1 being and 10 being Then Ryan, acting as our resident scaredy cat, will rate the spook factor of the film.
And then we will begin our spoiler-filled walkthrough of the film.
And I will be providing behind-the-scenes info.
I'll do the critical-ception upon release.
And if it applies, I'll provide production budget versus box office gross and our own personal likes and dislikes of the film.
Then after the review, we're all going to play a game. This week, we'll probably be playing Blowjibber of the Week, and if we have enough time, we might be doing a head-to-head on trivia. And then after the game, we will go to the Horrorphobia wheel, and this week is Emily's exclusive choice.
You're at
Yeah.
my mercy
So she's
this
making
week.
Yeah.
the wheel.
Yeah.
I have all the power.
All right. So,
Destroy the child.
as I mentioned, before, the movie this week is 2018's Hereditary. My synopsis is this. Hereditary is a story about a grieving family that after the passing of the protagonist's estranged and seemingly mentally ill mother, the family begins to experience supernatural occurrences. My review is this. Hereditary is Ari Aster's directorial debut about the grieving the loss of our loved ones and the lengths we go to lessen our grief. It also highlights what happens to us when we lose a loved one that we may not feel so affectionate towards, that sickly mix of guilt swirled in with grief and trauma. Most film historians will look back on the resurgence of public interest in horror movies in the 2018s, especially quote-unquote elevated horror, and they will point to this film as one of the main catalysts of that movement. This movie takes moments in horror films that we feel like we've seen or experienced before, but then surprises you with how those moments end up being accomplished. When I saw this film, when it released in 2018, myself, a veteran horror film fan, left the theater and went to walk around Walmart with friends to shake off what I had just seen. A heartbreakingly believable cast of characters and a well-written script helped brings this film to the upper echelons of horror cinema of the past few decades. The acting, especially by Toni Collette, is superb. So well done, in fact, that the year that this movie came out, the fact that she did not receive an Oscar nomination for her performance in this film just goes to show how little respect horror films get from modern cinema and the award ceremonies that surrounding them. But this film is expertly written, shot, acted, and edited. The only complaint I have is that I'll never be able to relive watching this film again for the first time. So I'm giving this film 10 fucking faces on your face. So, Ryan, what is your review?
Okay. In lieu of a written review,
He's just
I'm
gonna
going to
cry.
tell you
Make a
guys.
noise?
I'm going to tell you guys a story about how Hereditary ruined my birthday. And it was so May 23rd. I turned 31 years old. I have the day off of work. I sleep in. I go out to lunch with my girlfriend. I drive an hour and a half to my friend's house. We go play disc golf. We get some Taco Bell. Having a great time. Great birthday so far. And then we put on Hereditary. And nothing could have prepared me for how emotionally abusive this fucking movie is.
Yep.
The scares were enough, right? Like, I mean, this is the scariest movie I've ever seen, by far. And that would be it. But the biggest part of it was just the emotional dread that builds through the movie. You had made mention in an earlier episode about Hereditary, about how you're wishing the movie would fucking end.
Mm-hmm.
And I now know what you meant. Because you weren't like, oh, this is scary, I want it to end. You're like, my soul can only take so fucking much. Like, I literally cannot take these gut punches over and over. So to shake that off, you had to go walk around Walmart. That's something I couldn't do. I had to go home. Right after we got finished watch, I had to drive home alone an hour and a half in the dark. Couldn't even look in my own fucking rearview mirror because there might be a fucking headless little girl back there. This movie, I hate it. I hated this fucking movie. 10 out of fucking 10. It's a 10. It's a goddamn fucking 10. And fuck it. I hate it. You know what it is? It's fucking Tom Brady.
Oh.
It's Tom Brady because it's the GOAT, right? Like, Tom Brady's the GOAT, but I fucking hate him. But I can't deny that he's amazing. And that's how this movie is. It's like, God damn it. It's one of the best movies I've ever fucking seen. And I fucking hate it. I never want to watch it again, but God damn it, it was a masterpiece. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
Tom Brady out of 10.
Yeah,
Yes.
Tom Brady out of 10.
Be around
10,
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Birthdays ruined for me.
Yep. Nice.
Has that ever happened to you?
So Ian, what are you giving this film?
So yeah, I mean, this movie, it set like a really high bar for me in the horror genre. It's everything I'd want in a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
It's my favorite horror movie, and it's probably my second favorite movie overall. There's an unsettling aura throughout the whole entire movie. The soundtrack is killer. Every scene is thought out and has a purpose. There's so many details to pick up on. It's great pacing, great acting. And I mean, I've seen Hereditary probably like 10 times now, and I still gain something new every time I see it, with all the little details and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, anyone who loves being spooked and thinks they have a fucked up family, you should lock yourself in your room away from your fucked up family, shut off the lights, and watch this movie. So I'm giving Hereditary a 9.8 headaches from slamming your head on the attic door.
Fuck.
Is this movie better than Speed?
Debatable.
I know there's no bus jumping in like
Speed
a
Speed
30
is
foot
a
gap.
great movie. It's
Oh
a
my
great movie.
God.
All right. So other Jake, what are you giving this film?
Everyone already said so much, and I agree with so much of that. One thing that I noticed about this movie that I really enjoyed was its subtlety. It's something that I think like compared to just based on the movie we did last week. I can't remember the name. I just think of The Ritual, which is the
Wicker
book
Man?
it's based. Wicker Man.
Yeah.
And it's was compared to this way over the top as far as like its iconography and like the actual like the weird thing about this movie was it teaches you about like the practical like application of what goes into a ritual. I think more than, like I said, I need to rewatch this. We talked a little bit pre-show, but I need to watch this movie a lot more just to wrap my head around some of the things and some of the subtlety of the way scenes were acted and the interactions with characters and set and all that. And I'm super interested in doing that and super excited to. This is a great movie. I gave it a 9.6.
Nice.
Headless birds.
Nice.
All right.
And I think going off more what Jake said, I mean, I think you'd really like Midsummer too. Like, cause that reminded me a lot of The Wicker Man.
Who, me?
Just from the same. No, Jake, other Jake. You saying how you
Yeah,
like the Wicker Man
people
and
put
stuff?
those
Like-
two as far as ritual movies together, and I haven't seen Midsummer yet, but
Oh, it's
even
great.
this,
That's one
you-
I would love to do because I actually like that movie.
Yeah.
And it's also it's just as good of a movie, but it's one that I wouldn't mind rewatching.
Yeah.
Awesome.
just goes
It'll
more
tell you
in
why
depth.
he's the master of daytime horror because he can make
Yeah.
scary shit with the lights on, and you'll
Yeah.
still be
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah. So speaking of special guest Parker, what do you give him this film?
So I came up with 5. I usually come up with 5 factors, and I put those out of 10. And so this is like a slow burn paranormal cult horror type movie. So the 5 factors I chose were the scare factor, story/dialogue, acting, pacing, and then the overall feel and atmosphere. I gave it a 10 for scares. I gave it a 9.5 for story and dialogue. I gave it a 9.5 for the acting. The only reason I took 0.5 off for acting is because the dad's accent goes from American
Yeah.
to like Irish
Yeah.
back to American to Irish.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know where that came from.
Yeah.
Pacing, I gave it a 10, which is pretty important for like a slow burn. And then the
Yeah.
atmosphere, I gave it a 10 as well. So overall, I copied him 9.8 out of 10.
Nice.
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 All
Very
right.
good.
Now finally, Emily,
Me.
what is your rating for this film?
This movie, I didn't think this movie was going to be important to me, but after we watched it, we did walk around Walmart, and I didn't allow us to bring this I didn't allow Jake to buy this movie and bring it into our house. I did not want it anywhere near me.
It's like
Because-
bringing a Ouija board in there.
Exactly. I
yeah,
was still
yeah.
terrified of horror movies. I wouldn't watch them with him in the house. He watched Annabelle alone when I was at work, and I was terrified. I have a Raggedy Ann doll that I grew up with, and I put her at the bottom of my underwear drawer, and she's still there. Like,
I did not know that.
yeah.
That's
I
funny.
thought I was like, you demonized like my childhood doll. So, but after
If only it were that easy.
Yeah.
This shit takes work and like a team of
Destroy the
people,
child.
Yeah.
and years and generations of people.
Yeah.
As we'll learn.
Yep.
it
Oh
just
my God.
every movie we watched after this though was not as scary, and nothing bothered me, nothing kept me awake anymore. This movie like broke me, and now I love horror movies, and I can like watch them and not be terrified of them. And this is an intense movie, but it's intense every time I've watched it. We've watched it like 4 times now, and I still like tense up, and it's hard to watch. And I think that's like amazing that a movie could do that and like be effective every single time you watch it. So I gave it a 10 out of 10 pairs of incredible schoolroom scissors.
Oh yeah.
The sharpest, most amazing. I actually went to Michael's yesterday looking for scissors like that, and they're like $60. So
Oh, yeah.
just like,
We don't have that. We don't have that school budget.
nah, dude.
Most people are looking for knives that can cut cans. She looks for, scissors that can
Not for birds, for my candle wigs. Like,
Sure.
Wow.
that's
All right. So Ryan, what are you rating the spook factor of Hereditary?
Okay, I gotta have somewhere to go, right? Because this is the scariest movie I've ever seen.
It's at the top. It's the top.
It's at the top, but I can't give it a 10 because I gotta have somewhere to go. You think? I mean, what are you?
Where are you gonna go?
I don't know, man.
I'm giving
mean-
it a 9. I'm
Okay.
giving it
Yeah.
a 9 for scare because I gotta have somewhere to go.
I mean, either way, we're gonna we know that Hereditary is still what you're gonna compare everything to anyway.
Exactly. Like this
So,
this is the top of every movie, which I haven't seen a ton of horror movies. I've seen probably since we started this podcast. I think I've seen more horror movies since we started this than I have my entire life prior to the podcast. So
10 movies.
I
this
thought it was
is
gonna be
number 11.
lower.
Oh,
This is
really? I
number
thought this
11.
was episode 10. I'm sorry.
And we miscounted. I went back and counted it. We thought this was 10, which is interesting because in our episode 1, Emily did mention that episode 10 she's like, we should do Hereditary.
did.
And I said, fuck no, I won't be desensitized by then.
Yeah.
But episode 11 was it. So
I think you were ready.
Yeah.
You just wanted
Yeah,
to be right.
No, I never would have been. I never would have been ready for it. And not even
Nope.
even if I was ready for the scares, which I wasn't. Speaking of which, if you guys want to play
trauma.
over under of how many nights of sleep I lost, that's not over yet.
Oh.
Yeah.
I woke up sick the next day. Like I'm like literally like you can hear it in my voice, right? Like I've been like the only thing that's allowing me to sleep right now is NyQuil.
I haven't slept since my 31st birthday.
Which is Halloween day too.
Yeah,
31st.
fucking,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have not.
The
yeah,
unlucky
no.
number.
My girlfriend's out of town right now.
Is that Payman behind you?
Fuck you, dude.
Holy hey, we've turned Ryan into an empty vessel with all this trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This here's
I'm
Charlie's clicking.
That was the goal. We've
I'm
done
at
it.
my most vulnerable right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
I'm, dude. It's bad. It's real bad. So I'll keep you updated on how many nights I actually lose sleep over. But yeah, this was by far the scariest movie I've ever seen.
Yep.
But it was great. It was great, and I hate it, and I hate
Yep.
my life. Let's keep going.
And you chose this movie.
I did. I fucking.
Joe,
Remember
you-
when The Ring
was
was
all
like
you.
the scariest movie
I
back in the
hadn't
day?
even
The
seen
Ring was
that.
like super. The Ring is like a
Yeah.
4
Never
compared to
saw The
Hereditary
Ring.
at a 9.
I mean,
The Ring is great. In my opinion.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great, but it's definitely lower
At
than
the time.
Hereditary.
No, yeah.
At the time.
Yeah, for the
I
times. And
I
when we
mean,
were kids.
I still think for me it's still Exorcist or this, like Exorcist.
The original Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
See, I've seen it a couple times. It's hard to get over like the animation, just the way that it looks. That's why I always usually just watch modern movies.
It just shakes me up every single time. Like
Jake,
Every
would
time
you
they go up to that room.
would
just-
you say this is one of the scariest movies you've ever seen?
for me, yeah.
As a horror buff. Okay.
Yeah.
So
No, I
what
mean,
else?
like-
What's gonna happen to me if I watch this one? What else? You can't do
You'll-
shit to me now.
They'll only be easier. You'll be like,
unless, unless you end up finding out that some other subgenre of horror, you know, like you know, like something else really bothers you that you haven't figured out yet. Because I mean, the spectrum of horror, you know, is vast. So
Yeah.
Oh, this hit everything. This
maybe
hit it all
Butt
for me.
Boy, maybe Butt Boy will upset you. Who knows?
Ooh.
Butt Boy? What the
Yeah.
fuck
have you
is that?
seen any found footage movies?
Yeah. I've seen like Cloverfield. Yeah.
Okay, it's a good movie. I like that. J.J. Abrams.
I just watched it
Um,
the first time like a month ago, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So no head.
So
Okay,
I
dude,
guess
let's
I guess
get into
now.
the spoilers.
Yes, dude. Yes, Queen. Let's get into
Moving into
spoilers.
spoilers. Hey everyone, Ryan here, and I'm here to tell you about us, Horrorphobia, the spooky movie review podcast. Now, we love doing this show for you guys weekly, absolutely free of charge, but if there's something you want to do to support us, there's many ways you can do that. One of those ways would be to tell a friend, because word of mouth travels faster than you think. Another huge way would be to leave a review on our podcast on either Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. That helps because it really will boost us up the algorithm and allow us to be more visible, so more people like you who enjoy the podcast will be able to find us. And we also have our Patreon at patreon.com/horrorphobia. There you will find all of our tiers and the benefits you will get for subscribing to them. And then we have our socials, Twitter at Horrorphobia Pod, Instagram at Horrorphobia Podcast, and our Facebook is Horrorphobia, a spooky movie review podcast. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the show.
Okay, so I guess since we're into spoilers, let's get into like critical reception of the film.
Oh my
Let's-
god.
I'm sorry, you're not ready? Oh my gosh.
No, I'm ready.
That's okay.
I just did. It's just at a new and exciting time every time that we do.
I know. Well, that's why I
Yeah,
like
no, I
that
get
we
it.
kind of got into that early on Trick or Treat when I was listening to it. So I think I wanted to
Yeah, get
try
those
to
get those two things out of the way.
get production
Mhm.
budget and
Yeah,
get
man.
critical reception out of the way.
That's true.
I'm definitely not looking
ask
up
for it
my
later.
shit right now, just so you know.
I mean, the critical reception for Hereditary was pretty stellar across the board.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how people were excited for it when it was Ari Aster's first debut movie. I mean, I think he's
Yeah.
done short movies before this, but
I remember when it came out on the festival, like Cannes and all
Oh,
those.
yeah, I
and I
guess.
remember people saying it was the new Exorcist.
yeah.
So
In fact, they had that quoted on the trailer
Yeah,
too
they
when
did,
were
they
when they were
did.
promoting it.
yeah. So
And now we
Mhm.
don't believe anyone when they say that a movie is the next Hereditary.
yeah,
because
we
it
we
never
believe
is.
we believe that with Saint Maud, and we were
Saint Maud.
deceived.
Fuck
Yep.
Saint Maud.
Eight.
Let's review that. We say that at home all the time. Why are you
Yeah.
reacting like that? Every time we scroll through Saint Maud on Prime, we go, fuck Saint Maud.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a cute thing we do. And now you're not doing it anymore. With
I'm
me.
just saying. Well,
You guys want to like?
last time we went over it,
Are we done?
I was like, maybe we should go back and watch that. Maybe we were too harsh on it.
Oh my gosh,
and
he's
you know, yeah.
screening.
I'm sorry.
You guys need therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
you do.
need
You guys
counseling.
okay?
That's just
You
our
guys gonna
marital
make
problem.
it?
We can like call a 10-minute break or something.
Over,
You guys-
over Saint Maud. No, keep it in.
you guys can have that fight.
You have been married a while.
Yeah, too long. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my
We'll,
god.
we'll watch Saint Maud again, then we'll see if the marriage is worth it. Um,
Start splitting up the furniture.
Yeah.
A dog.
but yeah, it's the critical reception is pretty much 90% across the board. And everyone's just celebrating Toni Collette's performance, who we watched the special features, and Toni Collette said, I'm not doing another dramatic, intense movie. I'm doing a comedy next. And then she picked this movie.
Do you know when her last
Jesus.
horror movie was before that?
What?
Sixth Sense in 1999.
Oh, wow.
Sixth Sense.
And she
Yeah.
said
Oh.
she
Yeah,
said
she's
she
a mom.
couldn't do any more horror movies because she was too afraid of them. And
Oh
she
my
was like
goodness.
a big baby. But then she read the script and saw it was
Yeah.
his Ari Aster's debut movie, and she had to take it.
And now she's
Yeah, she
really
said
afraid
she
of
was.
him.
Yeah, she was tired of crying all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
but
what she
she's
said.
so good at it. Like,
Yeah, me fucking too.
Dude.
Jesus Christ. You,
just get on,
Dude, and everyone-
get on Wellbutrin and then do another movie.
Could you imagine Bruce Willis's rotten brain on the set of Hereditary? Trying
Oh
to say-
God. Dude, and you know what's funny? Everybody talks about Toni Collette's character and her role, and she was obviously incredible. But I thought the person that carried the movie, she was obviously awesome, and this guy didn't carry it. But Alex
Yeah.
Wolff, the son,
Yeah,
Peter,
yeah,
his
Yeah.
reaction to everything
So
was by
good.
far the most terrifying part of the whole
Yeah.
movie.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
unsettling.
Yeah,
Everything he
I think
reacted to.
he. Yeah, I think he said that he method acted that
Yeah.
whole his
Yeah.
whole
Yep.
It was
Yeah.
unreal.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Unreal.
watched
It's
we
great.
watched Cursed on it's the special feature on the Blu-ray, and it's like the making of. And yeah, they said that they called him, what's the name of the character?
Peter?
Peter. They called him
Peter.
Peter the entire time. Everybody called him
Yeah.
Peter.
and he like introduced himself as
Yeah.
Alex by the end of the movie. Like
Yeah.
he's like, nice to meet you,
yeah.
which is super.
he was
I don't
so
talk
good.
shit. But that's good. He did great.
So
A couple fun facts with Alex Wolff is he was one of the two members of the Naked Brothers band.
Yeah,
no fucking way.
I thought that
Really?
name was familiar.
Yep, he
What a
was
champ.
one of the main dudes in that. It's crazy.
I love that.
Oh
Uh,
my
Nickelodeon.
fucking
Yeah.
god.
Enlighten
Yeah.
me.
The man.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
It was a Nickelodeon show like
Yeah.
back in like 2004 or something.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Like-
for sure. Yep.
Like it sucked. It was a bad show.
Right. Oh yeah.
it was
yeah.
around the time of like Zoe 101.
They were
and,
cute
Yeah.
though, and that's all that
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they just were basically like brothers that had a band. It was like pre Jonas Brothers, I think. Like I think
Oh,
this
yeah,
was
I-
like
Was it
Yeah, I
really?
think so.
I think so. I think this was old because I remember seeing this shit when I was like 12.
Yeah.
Came out in 2007.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because also in
You
2007,
were 15,
he
you fucking
Ryan
right.
was 15.
he portrayed the young boy in the Fallout music video,
Was
the
I?
takeover.
Oh, I was 15.
Oh.
I
No, we're
didn't.
not.
So, did I watch that shit? No, I did not watch that shit when I was
Explain
15. I
Well-
don't know. I don't know what
Definitely did.
happened.
You can't walk
I don't
in
know what
like
happened, guys. I was playing with my action figures, and
I was 17.
Watch
I
the
watched
Naked
it.
Brothers band.
and Naked Brothers Band was on the fucking TV, and I was like,
fine.
Those
there's
boys
nothing
are
else
cute.
on.
Look at
I
these
was-
cute boys.
I was homeschooled. There was nothing else on TV. What do you want? You ever?
That's
He
when he was
meant-
finding his sexuality.
You ever
meant to
stay
watch-
home from? You ever stay home sick from school and then realize like there's nothing good on TV when you're not at school? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
You
that's
thought I
we
was
watched
naked and
Price is
afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I got caught. I got caught real bad. Anyways, $10 million budget. They $10 million budget, 82 million gross.
Nice.
They
got
fucking
my
did
dollars.
amazing. And I will say like so there's people who don't like this movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
There are people who say like it's like overrated and like it's like whatever. Those
Yeah,
people
fucking-
are they're the
fucking
fucking
idiots.
they're the contrarians.
I can
Like,
I
they're
can
like,
explain it because I saw it in theaters and everybody around me hated it. When they were walking out, they all said that was awful. And the next thing they said was I didn't get it at all. And I was
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing.
how do you
oh,
not
they didn't
get it?
understand it. Okay.
I thought the ending.
Yeah.
I thought they should have like when they play that music and it's that song Reborn. They're like playing that song and it starts zooming in on Peter's face. I thought they should have cut the movie there and not had that 1 minute dialogue at the end because I didn't think they needed to explain that at all
No,
because
yeah,
I
you're
understood
right.
it fully. They
Yeah.
still gave that dialogue and people still didn't get it,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand how that was possible.
Yeah.
Like
That's
they
crazy.
explained it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you think those people just have like happy families? Maybe
They have
that's why.
functioning
Maybe.
families.
Yeah.
I
Or
don't know.
it's an
Really
attention
great.
span thing to where it's like some people were just like probably so disturbed that they kind of like tucked into like I'm gonna stare at the person's
Oh,
the
yeah.
back of their head in front of me.
I
Like
think
That's
I
how my
think it's-
mom was.
Jake, it sounds like
survive.
that happens.
it's people who can't understand value in things that they don't like.
Yeah.
Like because I hated
They
this
don't know to
movie.
like
I cannot stress that enough. I fucking hated the experience of watching this movie, but it is a 10. I can see the art. I can see the value of this movie, but at no point during this movie was I wasn't happy. Like I didn't enjoy myself. Like thinking back
It
to a
served its
movie
purpose.
like
Did exactly what it was supposed to.
Trick or Treat, right? I was a blast. I loved like that was a feel good horror movie. Like that was a movie that I was happy to watch and I would be happy to watch again.
Yeah.
This was not that.
And
This
that-
was
now,
true horror.
now you get to see the full spectrum of horror movies, and you know,
Exactly.
some are
And I'm
fun,
glad.
goofy,
I'm
and
glad
fun.
to know that. I'm glad to feel that and to be like, okay, that's where it can go.
Mhm.
But like I said, like I am like my guttural reaction was like, get this shit away from me. But also, I was intensely watching this with the fucking lights off. Fuck you guys for turning the lights off.
You have to.
there was a glare.
Yeah, there
I
was
watched
a
it
glare.
all alone with the lights
I
off.
wanted to watch it with the lights off the whole time, but I didn't want to
Well,
scare you.
I was trying to take notes, but whatever.
Yeah.
After a certain point, I realized like notes weren't going to help me.
Yeah.
So
And I shut the lights off.
yeah, and but yeah, it's like I said, I didn't have a good time watching it, but I can see the masterpiece that it is.
Yeah.
So it got a 10. You know what I mean? So like I just think people who don't like it, like Parker said, like either didn't get it or they're contrarians, or they're like just because it's popular, because people like it, they just say like, oh, it sucked, it's overrated because they want to be different.
I
Well,
mean,
at the time, they might not have known that yet.
yeah, and
If they,
some
like don't get it.
people
resonate with
just love jump scares too, and this
And
does
that's
not
true,
have
too.
jump scares.
Actually,
I-
I worked with
Sorry.
somebody.
There's
who
only a
thought
few.
Hereditary was overrated, and yeah, he was like, it just didn't like nothing like jumped out and like actually scared me.
Yeah.
I was like,
Some people
Yeah.
love that shit.
Or if
Me,
they
I
watch
just
it,
roll
like,
my
in
eyes
fun.
whenever I see a jump scare usually. But
Yeah, I'm all about the atmosphere, how it makes you feel.
good vibe or bad vibe. What's so sad? Why'd you do that?
I don't know. I just wanted the drop. So
I loved it.
All right. That one's not coming through good. The rest of them come through good. That one's not.
It comes
Um,
through good to me, and that's all that matters.
Uh,
So no head.
That one comes through great.
Fuck yeah.
Speaking of no head, I guess we'll get in the walkthrough of
Yeah.
Her Head is Scary. So this movie begins with you see a lot of miniature sculptures of houses and whatever. Like there's like kind of like a room. The story centers around this family, and the mother, Annie, she makes sculptures. That's her job. Like she makes like miniatures of real life things. Like a lot of it is kind of like storytelling of like events that have happened in people's lives. And she's very, very talented at this. And it's going through all of these sculptures, and it zooms in on one that is their house. And it zooms in, and it does a cool transition of into Peter's room. Peter is the son, and as it zooms in on this miniature, the room becomes real. Like it's just the scene starts, and it's the father waking up the son, trying to get him ready for the funeral because it basically centers around this grandmother of the family had passed away, and they were getting ready for the funeral. They go and find Charlie, which is the daughter. She sleeps in the treehouse a lot. And they go to this funeral, and the
Shadow.
mother. What was that?
It's foreshadowing her sleeping up in the treehouse a lot.
Yes, exactly.
Finding comfort there.
Yes.
Another
I
thing
never
I
even
will
thought about
say is when on the first transition, like you said, the first transition of the movie comes in through a window into Annie's workshop, which is where we get the camera pan and then a zoom into their miniature house, which will contrast later. The window we come into, which is Annie's room, isn't the room we're gonna leave in. Spoilers.
Yep.
It's funny you mentioned that that's like her work, because if you notice, the majority of the sculptures that she had actually resemble the majority of the trauma that she's got in her life. It's most of the traumatic experiences that she's felt. In fact, she has to like turn some of them away from her because she doesn't like
Exactly.
having to relive them over and over.
Your
Yes.
mom popping
Yeah.
a titty out.
Which
Exactly.
is
And it's kind of
the
like
movie.
what I attributed this to, because that's her art, right? And a lot of people use art to express their trauma. Like I'm a musician, so a lot of my trauma I write through my music. You know what I mean? It's shit that I don't want to relive and think about, but it comes out through that. And so when people think it's weird, I think some people would look at like her sculpting traumatic experiences and think that's weird. Like, why would you want to do that? But to me, it makes perfect sense why she would do that, because you are projecting that trauma into something that makes it worth it. Like, that's kind of how I've always, like, it's like, well, if I'm going to go through this trauma, I'm at least going to create art out of it.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, that's kind of how I've justified a lot of it, and how it makes it okay for me. And I just think so. To me, her sculpting these traumatic situations of hers makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, and King Payment also, he is known as appreciator of the arts too.
Oh,
Which
Yeah, he's known. Okay, so King Payment, like he's a science nerd, he's appreciator of the arts, and a nature lover.
He's the
So
god
just-
of mischief, the demon
Yeah,
of mischief.
God of
Yeah,
yeah, demon of mischief.
Payman.
Not to get
Which
too
we
much in him
will-
now, but
no, we're
yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
See, I'm
just kinda-
assuming people
We're
who
still
are
on the
listening to
first
this,
shot right now.
yeah, they've probably people
Yeah.
who are listening to this have probably seen this movie, especially if they're in spoiler section. So you know who Payman is. Hail Payman.
Help
Yeah.
Payman.
just
Um,
hail payment. While we're
Yep.
addressing it though, it's I mean everybody in, I mean the husband is the one I noticed he didn't really, his art is, I guess, psychiatry, which doesn't really, I guess, manifest as just like someone who just is trying to control the situation. But Annie has her work at Minnie's. The daughter, I can't think of her name, Charlie. Does a bunch of little artistic stuff, and she's scribbling in her notebook, and Peter is noodling on a guitar and has a keyboard in his room, one of the first shots we get. So like one of the things I notice is like uh this movie is obviously, we've already talked about trauma, but it's like I've heard people associate being evacuated almost as like the only time you can be possessed, and like evacuated people don't create art because they don't have any substance to put out. They're evacuated. So it's like they're almost showing that these people are involved in their art. It's like later on we see that that doesn't really, in this case against this demon, that doesn't help. It honestly like spirals them more, especially with Peter at the end, is like his evacuated expression is just like, this is beating me. I've pushed this all out. I'm reliving my trauma, and it's just like it's completely consumed them at the end. Like
Right,
they
and
become miniature.
That makes a lot of sense though, because Peter doesn't really have an artistic expression. So for him to be the target, that actually lines up very well.
True. Yeah, because it says Payman takes the most vulnerable.
Right. So they're at this funeral for the grandmother, who was a very secretive woman. She was 78 when she died, and as far as her daughter Annie knew, she didn't have a lot of friends, but there was a lot of people at the funeral. And she said that she thought that her mother would be suspicious of this, that this is like, that she was very secretive, and that she doesn't understand why these people would be here. And that obviously their relationship between that mother and daughter was strained, to say the least. But she gave the eulogy anyway.
You remember the smiling guy at the funeral?
Yeah, I fucking
He
do.
was there at the end, naked.
Yes.
In the
Yep.
room.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
That's
He was just waiting.
I wasn't looking at anybody's faces at the end, so I can't really.
Oh, it's all dicks. All
okay.
dicks.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of
Yeah,
bush.
there are a lot of there's a lot of things that you miss unless you've watched it like multiple times. That is one that I did catch though, because that guy had a very it's a smile that stuck with you. You know what I mean? Like you could recognize that face pretty well. And that comes in later.
Get the fuck out!
Exactly. And they showed us those balls.
Yes, they did.
So Charlie during this funeral is like drawing like pictures and stuff. She's always got this little notebook where she draws like usually kind of disturbing looking pictures. She always makes this clicking noise, this like tongue click. Like I don't know if that's going to come through on the fucking over the podcast, but
You not hear that?
did you hear it? Yeah, no, it's not coming through. I will add a sound effect. Our mics suck. She makes this like clicking noise or whatever. She seems to have some form of like autism or something, like some kind of the way that she's like acting, you know what I mean, like whether
Looking at the
she
ground,
has
not making eye contact, kind of.
yeah, like some like social like she misses like social cues, like she's like kind of like a weird girl.
You saying
When that bird hits the window, she doesn't even flinch.
Oh, she's a
at
diva.
all.
You saying autism cut the heads off of birds? Is that what you're trying to
I'm
say?
saying an autistic girl would definitely cut the head off a bird. Yes. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Cancel me if you want to, but that's exactly what an autistic person would
Like,
do.
not-
Obviously,
Not all autistic people would cut heads off birds, but like most people that would cut heads off birds may be a little
on that spectrum, yes.
Yeah.
Which then whatever. Anyways, I'm not going to get into the theory of autism.
The theory.
The theory.
Yes, it's a theory.
You're just snowballing here.
It doesn't exist. It
The
doesn't exist.
myth of
They're fakers.
The absolute fallacy.
I will say though that Charlie is Payman from the day she was born too. So like she's been controlled like her whole life.
no.
Okay.
He doesn't take vessels that are female.
Well,
You
that
mean-
was the first successful host that she had or Payman had, but at the end of the movie, that's why like Joan said we've corrected the host or we've corrected whatever, and now you have a male host or whatever.
She
I
was second born though.
Yeah, no,
She
I don't
was,
know. That's
But so that
Yeah.
was the thing, is that the
know,
mother
I
says that
disconnect.
when the son was born, she had already kind of distanced herself from the mother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she said she wouldn't let her mom around the son at all
Yeah,
because they
the-
had a falling out.
Yeah, I never knew this, but the husband was the wife's psychiatrist, is the backstory.
Oh.
Okay.
And she married
Makes
her
sense.
and then he enforced a no contact rule
Oh, yeah.
with the mother. And so
Okay.
that's when the Peter was born.
And
Okay.
so the grandma had to then, over the years, try to mend that relationship so she could get to the next born.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then
Yes.
they
And
could
she
do the
had
ritual,
said
but there was going to be a little bit of a mix-up.
Gotcha.
she hoped it was going to be a boy, but it wasn't. But either way, she said she sunk her hooks into that daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, her
Um,
name was a boy name too, Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Um,
somebody calls her Charles at one point too, at the end.
Oh.
I didn't catch that, but that definitely
sure.
could be. But so I think the way that I took it, I don't know if it necessarily. I think that Charlie's body was hosting Payman, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was like a reincarnation from birth. I think the grandmother sunk her hooks into her by almost placing Payman's soul into Charlie, almost as like two souls, like Charlie and Payman's soul were both possessing the same body.
Yeah, they did have to do something. The mom did. So the mom would, or the grandma would feed her, right?
Yeah.
Breastfeed her. The mom
Yes.
would drink that root, that special root, and that would get in her breast milk. That would be fed to to Charlie. And you remember when the mom Annie was at Joan's house and she finds a little thing, like a weird thing in her tea. She drinks and she's like, "Oh, what's that?" And she takes it out. That's part of the same root. So that was
Ah.
more of like the ritual. Like they needed to get that in the body to be able
Yeah.
to host him.
Isn't
It's
there a
almost
similar,
like a
they called
ritual
it
cleansing.
The Tannis root
Yeah,
from Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Satan root.
so I think that Charlie had a personality of her own, but Payman was also in there. So the Payman
I always
was
thought of it
coming-
as like an integration kind of
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Like Payman was coming out in certain, like what I would call the autistic tendencies, were like cutting off like the bird's head and like the no eye contact and like doing weird drawings at a funeral. Those were Payman. Like so
And all the drawings were foreshadowing and stuff. Like all of them had stuff to do. Like when she took the head off the bird, she was making the sculpture that looked like the sculpture at the end, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was all foreshadowing. She had seen it before. She knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Well, and
Subconscious.
exactly.
even the guy at the funeral, the creepy cultist, like who smiles, is smiling at Charlie when she's looking at her grandmother.
Because he knows he's looking at Payman.
Yeah, it's basically a walking
His new
deity in
king.
front of him. Yeah.
yeah. Yep, and that's actually so like one of the other cult members, when that bird flew into the window, and when Charlie goes out to cut off the bird's head, there was a woman watching from across the street that like waved over or whatever. That was another one of the cult members. So they're keeping tabs, like they know this child is hosting Payman.
Yeah.
And that
It
you know-
was destined before she was even born.
Yeah.
right, exactly. So yeah, so I mean, yeah, we've already kind of gone through all that stuff, so I will skip forward a little bit here. Annie ends up going to a grief counseling support group. She had said she was going to a movie, but she went there. Kind of starts discussing, like, she doesn't want to talk, but they're like, "Does anybody here want to say something?" And they do the, like, she was like, "Hi, Annie," and everybody's like, "Hi, Annie." Do you think that actually happens at those
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
things?
Yep.
Think so.
Like everybody just says hi?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dude.
You have to.
Okay.
You-
Yeah, because I
you-
wasn't sure.
What do you think they say? That they're just like, fuck off.
Yeah, you walk in, they're just like,
Yeah.
Can you leave?
Fuck you. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just wondering because I've only ever seen that in movies, so I'm like, is that a real life thing? But
Do something fruity.
she kind of talks about how she's having trouble processing the loss of her mother because she can't tell if she's sad that her mother died or if it's something that doesn't really matter to her, which has got to be a confusing emotion. I have never experienced something like that.
Yeah.
But the death of a family member that you would the guilt you would feel of being somewhat relieved that somebody that you are kind of sick of dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think that would be hard to process. So
Yeah.
so that's what she's there for.
I've had
She also
that.
talks about how I think her brother who killed himself,
Yeah. Well,
like she had
because
come earlier.
well, killed himself because he said that the mother was trying to put people in his body.
Exactly, which probably fucking was.
Yeah.
And so she goes to this, and she said that she's going there because last time she went before, like probably with her brother, she said it helped a little bit. So
All the trauma stuff she talks about too is so crazy. Like about how the mom, like I think was it her brother that died because he thought like her mom was putting people into him and
Yeah.
Yeah.
like yeah.
Then the husband,
Right.
husband hung himself or killed himself. Also,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Her.
no, the
Yeah.
husband, she killed him, right? Son killed himself, and she killed the husband. I think she is what she says.
mm-hmm. And I think at this point too, she'd already kind of gone through her mother's stuff a little bit, and she found some like kind of weird shit, like some like weird books about like maybe some like culty shit, but she didn't think much of it. But there was a note in one of the books that said like, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically like, don't feel too bad about all the bad shit that's gonna happen to you because the rewards are fucking awesome,
Yeah.
right? And she doesn't think anything of it. She's just like, my mom was fucking crazy, whatever. But Peter, the son, he wants to go to a party, and he asks his mom if he. It's a birthday party.
Your birthday.
It's your birthday party.
Your birthday. Happy birthday, darling. I love
for
that
all the-
song, dude.
That's for all the Bright Eyes fans out there.
Dude,
Hell yeah.
like him having this conversation reminds me of like listening to other Jake have, asking his mom if he could go somewhere when we were teenagers. It was like the same conversation.
Oh,
Yeah. So she basically was
Exhausting.
like, no, what's interesting too is that you can already tell like there's some animosity between the son and the mother there,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? Even before the traumatic event that will follow happens. And you find out what that is later, but so he asked if he can go, and she basically is like, bring your sister because she should experience some normal girl shit, right? Obviously this little girl is displaying some abnormal qualities and stuff, and she just wants her daughter to just be, like have fun like a normal little girl would.
Mhm.
So she sends her daughter. Well, she basically convinces because the daughter doesn't want to go to the fucking party, but she's like,
No,
you're
the
gonna
mom was
fucking
pushing
go.
her, pushing her
Yeah.
off.
And she's
out of the
like,
house.
okay, I'm gonna fucking go. So they go to this party, and the Peter, there's this girl he likes there, and like he goes up and starts like smoking weed with her. There was a scene earlier at the funeral. They made a real subtle remark of it that Charlie is allergic to peanuts. She's like eating like a chocolate bar, and they just like act like, is there nuts in that? Like it was like super subtle. It was super quick. Like you didn't really notice it. I took note of it because I'm like, this seems like a movie that wouldn't have unnecessary dialogue.
Yeah.
So that's got to come into play later. Also, I did know what was going to happen in the
Yeah.
car already. This was spoiled for me.
That sucks.
Yeah. Which is,
Yeah.
I don't know
That's
though. If
that's
you
such
were,
a shocking scene.
if
Yeah.
you were so affected by the rest of the movie, your little heart might not have handled.
No,
Not
yeah,
knowing.
maybe it was a blessing. Maybe it was a
Yeah.
blessing.
That
Yeah.
was one of
blessing
the
from Lord
beautiful
Payman.
things about this movie when it came out. What, at least for me, was the trailer just made it look kind of like a creepy kid movie. It just seemed like
Mhm.
it was a movie about Charlie being a creepy little kid, and that was about it. And I'm like, all right, that sounds cool. Like everybody says, it's the next Exorcist. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And then she,
She dies half hour into
Yeah.
the movie.
Yeah,
I know.
literally the
Yeah.
first act. It was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
end. That marks the end of the first act.
yeah,
Right.
And you like look down the way. I looked down the way or the row in the movie theater, and Jake's hands were over his mouth, and everybody else's were, and Jake kept his hands over his mouth for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, when
throughout
I
the
watched it
movie.
on Saturday, I went
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just
exactly.
watch.
Ju-
It's
I know
Yeah.
it's so stressful.
the
Jake
fifth
was
time
just
I've
Yeah.
trying
done
to
it.
eat popcorn without making a bunch of chewing noises
I was just eating Doritos while I was
because he
eating
knew
that.
his wife was gonna leave him.
It's
If
crunchy.
I was eating, I would have choked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Charlie ends up kind of. This is a party that was like all like teenagers, like older teenagers. This girl is 13 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't relate to anybody. She's just wandering around by herself and she just finds like a piece of cake or something, right? And starts eating it and it has nuts in it.
Yeah.
And you
No.
can tell.
I think the knife had because there was a scene where someone was just chopping a bunch of nuts.
Oh,
then-
that's what it was. Yeah,
Which
dude,
I
I
thought
totally
in a
forgot
movie
about that.
Where the cinematography was so
Oh.
good, I thought that was like one of those scenes when I'm like, oh, there's just someone chopping. Even the house party itself was such an affluent form of a house party, which
Yeah.
it just is what it is. But I'm like, there's just these teens who are drinking out of red cups, but are also like chopping nuts on a chef's board, and there's like a shot. I don't know. It
I
just
was just impressed that like a teenager was chopping nuts like that. Like that is a very like chef way to chop a bunch of nuts.
I would never
it's
put that
someone
much
in their
effort into it.
30s.
No
I know.
fucking
It's
way.
great.
Yeah, it's someone when you're
great
like
job.
at an older person party would be doing that, but like a teenage party, I'm like, what?
If
I
I
mean,
went to
maybe it's
somebody's
just-
house,
they're just a lot classier.
like a 30-year-old's house, and they were chopping nuts like that, I'd be like, this is impressive.
I shouldn't. I don't
I
belong here.
Yeah,
This is
I
yeah.
should have
You're a chef.
dressed better.
It's. I
Dude,
would.
my
I would
favorite
be-
thing is she was 13 years old at this party, and there was alcohol, drugs, all that stuff, obviously. But the best part is that in the kitchen, when she was getting the cake, they were playing Flatbush Zombies, and it was the song where he was like, "Fucking hoes, smoking
Oh.
dope,
yeah.
fucking hoes."
Yeah, dude. But she just wants
Eating
to eat some
chocolate
snacks.
cake.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
She just looks
She just
for
wants to eat
snacks.
some snacks.
Play some games
that's
on
what's-
someone's phone.
That's the shitty part is that she. So I guess like she knew not to look for nuts, but she didn't know that the knife that she cut the cake with was gonna have fucking nut residue on it.
Yeah.
And
Like an
you can
innocent
kind of see
lamb.
it. You can see it in her face, like as she's eating, like her face starts getting real red and shit, and she's like breaking out in hives. But she doesn't realize it then.
Wait, so
Then
like
she starts kind
temporarily was Payman allergic to nuts?
of.
it's probably like, "I
Yeah.
love this.
That's how you
Choke
killed
me,
her.
daddy."
What if
Yeah,
all of a sudden
ex-
Peter starts getting a nut allergy and you just have to kill
Payman was just
Payman.
allergic to nuts. the whole
Yeah,
time.
it was.
They don't
It
have
wasn't
nuts
even
in my
Charlie.
There's
circle
one
of hell.
weakness. Hereditary 2, somebody has to find nuts and save the world.
It's the Nut King.
It's the antidote.
So she's I love this scene too where like he's like upstairs hanging out and like smoking weed and
Oh
she
my
comes up
God.
and she's just like, "Peter?" And like he's like,
Wheezing.
what's wrong? Like, yeah, and like it's like it was such a realistic scene because it was like the kid who doesn't she's like, "I don't want to be like a bother to you,
Yeah.
but like my throat's closing up. Like it's hard to breathe." And like and he immediately knows what's going on. I don't know where the fuck their EpiPens are because they don't have any anywhere. Like
That
Even when
nice
they
of
were-
a house with that many people, someone's gotta have an EpiPen.
Yeah.
It was
I
just
mean,
destined
This
that
is
way.
2018. Like.
Yeah, because like
this-
at the funeral, they didn't have an EpiPen either. They're like, "Is there nuts in there? Because we don't have our EpiPen." They just never brought one, and
that's
like
what
they
I
were
mean. They just
negligent
don't-
I-
on purpose. Like,
EpiPens are expensive, man. You can't.
They fucking are.
They
They fucking
fire
are because
Absolutely.
they
Yeah,
told
don't
me
fuck
I
up.
needed one
Yeah.
a while ago, like a couple years ago, for some reason. I don't even remember why. That's how I not seriously I took it because I was like, I don't need that shit. But when they prescribed it to me, I went to CVS to fucking get that shit, and they're like, "That'll be $300." I was like, "That'll be a fuck you, no." And I walked away, and I haven't died since. So,
there you go.
Nice.
but yeah, so she needs this fucking EpiPen. It's not there. So he carries her out to the car. He's speeding to the hospital. It's interesting to note on the way to the party when they were driving there originally, they passed the telephone pole, and the telephone pole had this symbol on it, and it's
Yep.
the same symbol of a necklace that the mother Ellen was wearing in the casket, and also a necklace that was given to Annie, that she wears as well. It's just like its reoccurring symbol. It's carved into this telephone pole, and it's the exact same telephone pole. Peter's driving and he swerves. There's like a carcass in the middle of the street or something.
Perfectly placed there.
Yep. He swerves and she's sticking her head out of the window and just to get, to get air because she can't breathe. And she knocks her fucking head off as he swerves, and he just brakes and does exactly what I think anybody would do, which is not be able to process what the fuck just happened.
Yeah, so realistic. I would think. I've never done that. But
he sits there, stares forward for a while, just kind of hoping that what he thinks happened didn't just happen. And then he does this like real slow look. You see like a point of view shot of him kind of look up into the rearview mirror and then quickly look back. So he confirms it. Like, fuck. Like,
remember, he was one of the ones that didn't have the art to be able to process trauma too.
yes.
Exactly. Imagine if he had a guitar in the car, he would have been fine. Played a couple jams, and he would have been perfectly fine.
Hit single.
Exactly.
Do a color by number.
Yeah.
And then the slow pull off of him just being like, I'm gonna just leave. Like, and he just drives home, cannot confront what just happened. And he drives home, parks the car, and he just goes and lays in bed and lays awake all night until his mother finds the body in the morning. And we have the most fucking uncomfortable scene in the goddamn world. This is where it all starts. This is where
this is the end of Act 1. This is still Act 1, yeah.
This is where the trauma and the fucking gut punches of sorrow begin.
Crazy.
Of this actress who Tony Collette, yeah.
Oh, do you remember in Act 1 too when Charlie cuts off the head and she's like making that model, but then she sees the light, which is supposed to be Payman, and it brings her out to the field, and the grandma's sitting out there in front of the fire because like the cult leaders placed the grandma there to start some kind of ritual off, and
oh shit,
so
yeah.
creepy.
Yeah, they
forgot about that part.
I know, me too.
Annie drags her inside, and it's when she kind of freaks out and is like, "You're outside with no shoes on, and you're some kind of idiot."
Right. So the mother is just screaming, and just all of the sorrowful, dreadful scenes in this movie were acted so well because you were just, it feels gross watching.
Yeah.
Like you're watching this shit and you're just like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like I feel like I should leave. Like, you ever been at a friend's house and something weird happens, like the parents start fighting or something, and you're just like, I'm gonna go. Like,
yeah, dude, their family's chemistry was terrible. There was so much gaslighting that was going on. Like when the mom was having the conversation and she was trying to get the son to admit guilt for like what he did.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to get her to admit guilt because she did try to push her off on him, like without even thinking about it, without even thinking, that he might be going to a high school party or anything like that, because she's also to blame. Yeah. But she was like making those things, like I think she made a noise like ugh, or something. He's like, do you want to say something? And she's like, no. And it's all so passive and just gaslighting, making people feel crazy. And that's just like the demon of mischief, meddling in everything that they're doing because they need to make Peter as vulnerable as humanly possible. So Payman can
evacuate.
Yeah. Yep. Like Joan was saying, get out, Peter.
Yeah. So
you need an empty vessel.
Yep, exactly.
Speaking of gaslighting, there's also there's something that's revealed a little bit later, but I'm bringing them now because it kind of ties in. The mother, Annie, tried to kill her children while she was sleepwalking. She had soaked her children and herself in kerosene and was standing there. Well, that's what it was? Paint thinner?
Yeah.
Yeah. and she was standing there with a match, and she had woke up from sleepwalking. But this very time, that's what Peter woke up to, himself being doused in paint thinner and seeing his mom standing over him with a match.
Yeah.
And so that is the reason why there has been this kind of awkward, like, animosity between Annie and Peter.
Good
And
call.
now it gets even worse because it's like, well, Peter accidentally just killed his sister, killed her daughter, right? And it's like, she obviously wants to blame him, but she can't. Like, how can you blame somebody for an accident like that? So you just have to hold that shit inside. And so it's like this, that
That's why
trauma
she makes
now,
a neutral view model of it.
exactly. That trauma goes both ways. And so they're trying to just kind of go on with their life. It fast forwards a little bit, like they have the funeral and shit, and it's just kind of like them trying to like get back into normal life. There's that dinner scene where they're all just kind of, it's the mother, father, and the son. They're just sitting at the dinner table, and the son, Peter, is just like, "This is really good chicken, Dad." And
Trying to like fake be a nice family.
yeah, exactly.
All
Just like
happy.
yeah, exactly. And he like looks up, and he's like, "You got something to say, Mom?" Because she's like being completely silent, and she's just like no, like, I like, why would I say anything when, like, what did she say? Like,
She's like,
you're-
"Do you want to say
You're just
something?"
gonna scoff
Yeah.
at me.
yeah, like, if you're just gonna scoff at me or whatever, and like there's just this bitterness, whatever, and like, it's like, if you got something to fucking say, just say it. And she's like, don't swear at me, you little shit. And then she blows the fuck up at him. Like,
Wipe
it's like,
that fucking
all,
face off your face.
yeah, wipe that fucking face off your face. It's like all of this, like, this built up, like, it comes out, right? And like, she blames him for Charlie's death without blaming, she's like, "I know it wasn't your fault, but your sister's fucking dead, and you have to confront that. You never said you're sorry," and all this shit. And it's like, you're watching this fucking family fall apart, and you're just like, the realism, like, how could you sit there and write what would happen in a situation like this so accurately when you haven't been through it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It felt very personal. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think like last week when we were covering The Wicker Man, we were talking about faith, and I mentioned Fear and Trembling. And like, it's almost like, if you know the ins and the outs of like ritual, and like especially something like this, to where like by the end of it, it's like, oh, you couldn't have planned a more effective way to break people down in making them see like certain shit that you like. Especially, it's almost like the whole time I'm wondering, like, is someone in this family in on how they're fucking up every other, like, almost like they're another part of the cult? But it's like, no, that's just how well this is, years and years of planning and intervening, and like like it mentioned earlier, like sinking your hooks in, like fertilizing like this soil that this tragedy is going to happen in. So it's
Yeah,
like,
because they didn't
almost
start off as a good family at all.
No.
They started off broken, and they got somehow more broken. Like at the funeral, right in the beginning, nobody gave a shit that the grandma died. Nobody had any compassion whatsoever. They were already broken. And somehow this mischief guy can break them down even further.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
Yeah. And even
Yeah.
just her, like, you can tell, like, the scene escalates and escalates and escalates with her like getting animated, and then it soothes down, and it shows that Alex Wolf, Peter's like face, and then like there's almost like, even with his small like motor functions, like his mouth, like you can tell from the second it gets quiet, he wants to say something right back, but it holds, makes you like wait for that, and then finally he like delivers that line, like, "What about you? Like, why did you want her to go to that party spot, and her face when he subtly accuses her twists, and it's just perfect. Like the way she acted that, and the way the husband is like, even the husband who like is usually pretty fucking clueless,
He's like,
is
"Oh,
like,
shit."
Yeah.
okay, let's back off. Like let's not do this now.
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
knows
so
that he
crazy.
pushed the button just by the way her face turned, like it was like a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
they were both playing the same game.
yeah, like I said, it's still baffling to me that she was not even at least nominated for an Oscar for this movie, like for what she did in
Yeah.
this
That's
movie.
a huge snub.
Yeah.
It
For
really
the
Was Alex
whole
Wolff?
genre.
Was he?
No one
Alex
was.
Wolff.
No one
No
was
one was?
nominated for any
Yeah.
acting or this. I don't think it's received any Academy nomination for anything.
That's
This
unreal.
This would have been a great one to break down the barrier too, because it's so scary.
Well, it's honestly,
Yeah.
It's so artistic.
well, it's
Yeah.
kind
So
of
good.
Yeah.
like I wouldn't even like. I feel like technically there wasn't a barrier because if you go back to Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and
Oh,
The
yeah.
Omen, like almost all of those were nominated. It's Silence of the Lambs was nominated. Like,
They were rarer back then,
They're-
though. I feel like movies were just
Yeah.
movies.
but
Yeah.
all those movies received some form of Academy nomination. So if anything, as we've progressed through time, like we've gotten less likely to nominate these films for some reason.
I mean, more
The future
political.
sucks.
Seems like there's more of an agenda now in
Yeah.
movies. And I don't know
Mm.
if you guys heard this, but the Academy Awards, you have to now meet a certain percentage of demographics in your movie, whether it's like gay people, people of color, anything like that. You have to have a certain amount or you're disqualified to get an award,
That
which
makes
is
sense.
fucking dumb.
Yeah,
That is
It's
so
not
That's-
even about the
I
art
feel like
anymore
payment
or
is
about
trans.
anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, he would go by it. I think he would be
happy
Oh,
happy
yeah.
Pride
Yeah.
Month,
He's a
everybody.
demon lord. It's like,
for
why
sure.
not?
And he loves mischief. You know?
Absolutely.
His pronouns are fucked up.
He's
Um,
at a drag. He's at a Florida drag show right now.
He can't.
Hey,
He's
why
not
you gotta
welcome.
bring Florida into this?
He's not welcome to Tennessee. That's all I
Florida.
know.
I got great disc golf.
It's true.
And a
oh,
terrible
shit.
No,
governor.
Florida's the wild, wild west. We are fucked. Our
Um,
governor sucks, dude. Oh god. I feel like he sucked Trump's dick at some point.
Oh my god.
I mean, he had
I
to.
mean, didn't we all? Am I right?
Lord MAGA, which I
Yeah.
feel like is like a male wizard.
The ninth demon of
Mage-
hell,
mage, yes.
Lord MAGA. So Annie goes back to this grief counseling meeting, but she doesn't actually go in. She decides to turn around and say "fuck it," and a woman flags her down, comes up to her and says she hasn't seen her in a while, and she's just like, "Oh, like I've just kind of been dealing with that, whatever." And she's like,
Gotta go
"How have you
return
been?"
videotapes.
What was that?
I've got to go return videotapes.
Yeah. Just a Hollywood video. And she's like, "Well, how have you been since your mother died?" And she's just like,
Squeeze me.
Well, my daughter also died." And she's just like, "Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she's being very empathetic to her, saying all the right things. Says, if you ever want to talk, here's my number.
Answer
At first,
Jehovah's Witness brochure.
yeah.
What happens when we die?
I'm watching this, and at first I was like, let's give it up for Joan. That's literally what I said out loud. And then I thought about it for a second, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
No, fuck Joan.
And then her placemat outside of her house that confirmed it immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
something is up.
Jonas
Yeah.
Christie.
I was like, from what I've gathered from this movie, there is no savior. There is no good person that's going to come and make everything better. This doesn't add up.
I mean, there is one, and his name is Jesus Christ.
I was going to say
I
payment.
thought you were gonna say payment, yeah.
And so I was like, I was like, no, Joan's fucked up. Joan's in the cult. And I looked over at Ian, and he was just smiling. And I'm like, all right, okay. So yeah, and like you said, that was confirmed because so Annie ends up running into Joan a while later at the like a grocery store. And Joan comes up to her and is like, "Oh my God, like, you know, it's so good to see you." And then she just starts saying like, "You know, I got to tell you, like I had a medium come over and she conducted a seance and I was able to contact my grandson and it helped me out so much. And you need to try it. You need to try it. You need to come over. You need to try it." She's being super pushy. She's like, "I know what you're thinking. Like, obviously this sounds crazy. That's what I thought too. You got to come fucking do it."
You know, that was her second attempt at this, by the way. The first attempt was when she slid the seance flyer in the mail underneath. That was the cult's first attempt to try to get her to go to the seance to make the connection between her and Charlie. But since that didn't work, she had to find her out in public and actually try to bring her in. And so that was the second attempt.
Wait, when did they
Okay.
slide it underneath the door? I don't.
It was a quick shot. So it like showed it slowly went into the mail that was in their mail slot, and then a flyer like slid on top of the mail that was already in there, and it said seance, open seance this Saturday.
Oh.
And so then
Huh.
that's when she was like, I did the seance, and she pretended like she was there or whatever. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
And actually earlier, Annie was doing research online about it. She was looking up shit about it online, but she just never ended up doing it, obviously. But
Yeah, so the first one, I guess, at least piqued her interest, and then the second one almost confirmed it, and
Yeah.
that's when she got
Exactly.
invited in.
They saw them Facebook ads that she was already looking into it. And was
Oh
like,
yeah, by the way,
"Got
we're
her."
talking about this right now. We're all gonna get Facebook ads
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
for seances.
All I know is
She's on
that there's
Facebook right now.
there's 8 local singles in my area that are looking to fuck me. So that's all I know.
That's always the case.
Seance. Sell me.
I've
If my friend
believed
gave
both
me a
as
candle,
equally.
you know I'd burn that and like try to bring somebody, but I'm so.
Have you played
So-
the Luigi board? Can you burn a Luigi board? What is a Luigi board? My friends did a Luigi board. And
So she ends up going back to Joan's apartment, and there is a welcome mat outside that has the same symbol that was on the telephone pole, that was on the necklaces. And she's like, "Oh, like that's an interesting welcome mat. Like my mother used to make ones just like it." And that fucking confirms, like, this bitch is evil. They perform a seance where she talks to her grandson. She has them move a glass. The grandson like moves the glass to the left. I don't know if it was actually the grandson or if that was Payman doing that shit. Whatever.
It's payment.
Yeah, whatever the case is.
Welcome, Louis.
Yeah, somebody fucking moved the glass, right? And Annie's freaking the fuck out, like, which as anybody fucking would. Like, this is
And something breathes next to Annie that moves her hair, which was
Yep.
most likely Payman too.
right. He just went like, right in her fucking ear.
He just burped. Blech.
Yeah.
He's like, I hate putting on these shows for these rubes.
But so Annie wants to leave, and she's like, okay, fine. But she gives her like some papers or whatever that she's like, if you like, when you're ready, like, do this for yourself, contact Charlie. These are the words you need to say. Make sure your entire family's into the house. I will say this: the one mistake this movie made, if you watch Joan's lips as she says what she's saying, the original dialogue was, your whole family needs to be in the room.
In the room. Yep.
But they dubbed over it to say house.
Because they needed to show it, because they had her go down there first to try it out, and then
By
she brought the
herself.
family down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they dubbed over, they fixed their continuity error, but I saw what they fixed. Like, you could tell
Yeah.
they didn't reshoot the scene, they just dubbed over the voice. So I didn't notice the bubble in my throat. I noticed a
Bubble? Payman?
You ever get like a bubble in your throat? You know, when you're like,
We've cleansed the vessel for you, Payman.
it happens all the fucking time. You know what I hate? When people have a bubble in their throat and they don't know it and they keep talking.
I know I did
And you're
that,
just
and
like-
you had told me that
you're
you
like,
were bothered by it.
Fucking swallow. Like, fuck. But anyways,
I'll stop
I
doing that if
usually-
you stop eating on the mic.
Okay, you're right.
Better
You're
deal?
right. You got it.
All right, cool.
I usually pretend I didn't think anybody else knew what was going on, but now I'm really self-conscious about it. So thanks.
Good. I'm fixing
Everybody's dying, bitch.
So the seance, she ends up performing it by herself, right? And she goes up and she wakes her son up. She wakes up Peter, and she's like, come on downstairs. I want to try something. And like, she brings like the family downstairs, and no one's buying it, but like, she's like, please, like, just fucking participate. Like, I want to show you, like, I contacted Charlie, like, I want to. And so she does the glass thing again. The glass moves.
How
And-
resistant the dad is so unbelievably annoying in that scene and throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, because
so
you're
annoying
like,
to me.
if you're seeing this shit right in front of your
There's
face,
so
like,
much evidence.
Yeah,
We just watched it.
there's
Like,
Yeah, we watched the deleted scenes, and like, she ends up saying in one of the deleted scenes that it's just as bad to be so like resistant and so rigid about it or whatever. And he just,
Yeah.
I think he just walks off,
Yeah.
and then she's like,
wow.
yeah, it's awesome.
I think
Right,
I'd
that's
be the
wild.
same way though. I'd be like, I'm out. This seems like your guys' thing.
I mean, you can admit that you're scared and
I'm
then,
gonna- I'm going
leave.
to get a burrito.
But like, yeah, so strange.
Right, but that forms the connection. And also another thing that like kind of has been like throughout the movie, there's been like little inscriptions of words on the walls.
Yeah.
I
I have all three of those in my notes and what they
Satany.
mean.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you wanna take over for that, for sure.
Sure. Okay. Let me see.
It's first.
Yeah, it's yes, Satany or Satany, Zazas, and then Liftoch Pandemonium. And Satany is used in rituals of necromancy and communicating with the dead.
Mhm.
Zazas is used in a mantra to invoke demons. And Liftoch Pandemonium. Liftoch means to unlock or to open, and Pandemonium is associated with widespread chaos. So it's used like it's opening the door for global chaos, basically. And interesting enough, Pandemonium has the word demon in it, right in the middle as well.
Oh.
I think Pandemonium in Dante is one of the first layers of hell too, or it's one of
nice.
like it's one of the main core. Which I mean, all of this like demonology stuff. I mean, as far as like the most of the stuff I've garnered from demonology, it's usually like people would assume, oh, it's from like the Bible or this or that, or like the main text. It's like, well, this is like ancillary text from like, I mean, like Dante is like, it's almost like he built a whole fan fiction nerd, like a Silmarillion for the Bible and like hell and heaven and the hierarchies of demons and archdemons, and like that stuff is there, but it's like it's usually deep in like obscure like secondary texts as far as like a main theology goes. So like that I knew that like stuff just from being interested in Dante in the past, but so much of that demonology stuff is built off of like the work that Dante did in building a mythology behind something that's already quite mythological.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. And
Well said.
Pandemonium I always remember is like it's either like one of the, as far as like the how many circles of hell there are, it's either one of those circles or like a order of different circles, like 5 through 8.
It says it's the capital of hell
Yeah.
in the poem
Mhm.
Paradise Lost.
Oh, it's John Milton.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Again, and that's I mean, drew inspiration from Dante Alighieri. So, you know, it's all just nerds writing on other nerds fanfic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it's cool.
Well-
I do love that, like that stuff, like even like like a lot of this stuff is based on grimoires, whether that be like the Sefer stuff, like based on like Jewish esotericism, like as I think Ari Aster leans into, or like it's Judeo-Christian in origin. So it's interesting.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Right. What I thought was super interesting about these words written on the walls is, so when Annie is making her sculptures, she signs her name on the walls, like in like the same font that is written these words in or whatever.
Oh.
Like they kind of make it out to be like, and even some of the rooms, like especially I found like when the mother's room, like where the mother, like because the mother lived with them, right?
Yeah.
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 Right.
The end of her life.
It
I thought
looked
she was
like
in hospice at the end.
I think she
but
was.
like at one point, like there was a
Oh,
room of
okay.
hers.
Yeah,
in
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I remember
Okay,
they kept
yeah, yeah.
it locked, and it would
Yes.
keep opening. The door would randomly keep
Oh,
opening.
Yeah. Inside that room, it looked. I don't know how to explain this other than like the room looked like a sculpture. Like it.
They had the triangle on the floor
Yeah.
too, next to
They
the bed.
filmed it all in sound
Uh-huh.
stages, I think, too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
like
entire-
in a lot of the scenery of this house, like almost looks like it's like this could be very easily recreated in a sculpture. Like, and so that through line and those parallels were like super evident through the whole movie. I just thought like that was an interesting thing.
It's a good art
Yeah,
style.
I mean, yeah, the whole
Cinematography was
first
great.
Yeah.
was them going into the model. It's almost like the whole thing was a model because this is kind of like the play for Payman. It's him just
Yeah.
controlling everything. They're almost in like toys. They're just his dolls, and
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
even the
yeah.
outside shots of the house, I'm pretty sure were just a model. It was
Yeah.
just like a
Yeah.
model. It didn't even look like a real scenery, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
To go all the way back to funny games, that's like the theme of like simulation and simulacrum. Like the higher spiritual levels or the lower, in this case, spiritual levels love to play with that. It's because we're like, as far as like we're in the 3D reality of our world, they're outside of that. Like, so they love to play and interact in somewhere they usually can't. It's like their bread and butter.
Right.
So
That's a great analogy.
And so after this seance to contact Charlie is performed, Peter starts getting super haunted. He's at school and he sees this light kind of like he's like everywhere he looks, like there's like almost like the reflection, like you ever have like the sun reflect on your phone and like you can kind of make like a light coming off of it. You know what I'm talking about? He's like seeing that like kind of everywhere he looks, and he ends up looking in like a reflection of this like glass pane next to him, and it's his reflection looking back at him but smiling. And it's like Peter's
Fucking
just
love
getting,
that part.
yeah, he's getting fucked with like super hard. There was a in one of the ritual books that the grandmother had, it talked about Payman, like the host that he needs to be somebody who is at their most vulnerable. And the shit that Peter goes through in this movie is just consistently breaking him down emotionally and scaring him. And even like he starts having panic attacks when he's smoking weed and shit. Like literally like there's all these things that are just like going wrong in this dude's life. He's he's crying all the time because he's just fucked up. And it's just,
They say
oh god.
in spirituality too, when you do things like drink and smoke weed, it like clouds your like protection or whatever, which I don't know.
Right, exactly.
Like
Oh,
so it
it's spirit
like lowers
stories and-
that barrier.
And you know, we saw that light multiple times throughout the movie, and one of the times was, do you remember how Annie ends up deciding to call Joan for the first time to actually meet up with her? She's in her workshop, she's working on something. You see the light briefly behind her, and the ink, it looks like her arm hits like the ink, and the ink spills on the piece of paper with Joan's number on it. Her arm, if you rewind it, her arm doesn't get close to the ink. That was Payman. Payman knocked over the ink
No
to spill
fucking
onto the piece of
way.
paper. Yeah. So, and then that's when she picked it up, looked at the number, and realized like I should probably call her. I might need help.
Oh my
And so she ends up calling her because of that.
That's
Right.
cool. Yeah.
So this shit starts going bad, and Annie starts realizing that she did something bad by doing this seance. She starts like this sketchbook that used to be Charlie's starts drawing pictures of Peter with X's over his eyes. And she's like, oh shit, this is fucked up. So she tries to burn the book, but as it catches on fire, Annie also catches on fire. And she doesn't go out until she puts out the sketchbook. So that link was there, like she's like linked to like the sketchbook, which, you know, it's so she realizes like she's summoned something malevolent. Like she's starting to realize that like this isn't just like the ghost of Charlie coming to say hello. Like this is some fucked up shit. Right?
Mhm.
You've opened a channel.
Yes, exactly. You've opened a door that you cannot close.
Yep, a connection's been made.
She goes back to Jones and there's fucking nobody there. And she's like knocking on the door. And as the camera kind of goes into the apartment, you see like kind of like shrines built and like pentagrams and shit and like real fucking culty demonistic shit like everywhere with pictures of Peter at the center of it all. And she looks down at the welcome mat again and she recognizes that symbol. And she like it clicks in her head that like this woman might not be who she thinks it is. She runs home and starts going through all her mother's shit again. She's going through the books and she starts reading about Payman. Payman is like one of the like 8 princes of hell, right? And about how like he needs to possess somebody who is like vulnerable and
I've got the
whoever.
quote here. Want to read it?
Oh yeah, go ahead, dude.
Nice.
For sure.
It says, when successfully invoked, King Payman will possess the most vulnerable host. Only when the ritual is complete will King Payman be locked into his ordained host. Once locked in, a new ritual is required to unlock the possession. And then it goes on to say that Payman wants the male body and that riches go to the conjurer.
Yes. So whoever facilitates this passing on, this reincarnation of this demon, they will receive like riches. And so you see like Annie starts going through like photo albums of her mother, and you see like all this culty shit. You see her mother being showered in gold with like a fucking crown on her head or some shit, and she's like all happy. And but then she sees that there's pictures of her mother with Joan, the woman who never once claimed to know who her mother was or anything like that, whatever. So she realized like some fucked up shit's going on.
Wasn't the picture like the grandma had her eyes closed and then her eyes were open as if she was like reborn and reanimated? And wasn't she wearing the same dress that she was put in the coffin in?
I think so.
And the grave was desecrated. I'm pretty sure they took her body, reanimated it, and then being like the demon of mischief, put those pictures in the picture book.
Oh.
And then but then they ended up having to cut her head off and all that stuff.
That's the thing. Like,
continue
there's
it on.
so much fucking behind the scenes shit in this
Yeah.
movie.
Mhm.
There
Yeah,
are
he
so many
calls it-
little details.
Aster calls it flawed logic. He's like, the movie's full of flawed logic because the demon has, like, he's the demon of mischief. So he has to do that type of thing to like keep people vulnerable. Plus, the demon just thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they
doesn't
call
like-
it like
he doesn't like
an
it.
unreliable narrator or something.
yeah.
Like where it's like the truth that you think you're being told is not the truth.
Yeah.
So but regardless, so it's clear that so Annie is going crazy, but like the part of her that's not understands what's happening, and she's like, I have to fix this. And so she makes like one last attempt where she's like, we have to burn this fucking sketchbook. And so she's like pleading with her husband. Like she's like, please burn this book. She's like, I'm connected to it. So if this thing dies, I die. But I can't do it, but I need you to fucking do it. And he's so sick of this shit because he's like a psychologist. So he doesn't believe anything. Like he's just like,
And this
isn't
this
Yeah.
after he saw the mom's body with the flies up in the attic, and he was like, "What the
Yes.
fuck was that?"
Yeah.
And he still didn't think something weird was going on. He still thought it was in her mind. Like
Yeah.
I
no,
think,
because
He
he's
did say, I'm going to
thinking-
call the police.
yeah.
Yes.
And he said
Right.
like, "You're the one that desecrated the grave. Like you did this." And it's
Yes,
like,
he's blaming her for everything, and everybody. That's the thing. It's like it's all this like gaslighting of the mother
It's
Yep.
great
because
drama.
Yes, because
Just
like it's
more
like
chaos,
her
more flawed logic.
sleepwalking and like the mistakes she's made and like whatever, and it's like she's trying to like at this point she's doing the only thing that she knows she can do, which is to sacrifice herself to save what's left of her family.
Yeah.
But she can't do it. She's like, I can't basically commit suicide. And so she's like, please throw the book in the fire. He takes the book, starts walking to the fire, and he's like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. Like, I'm not gonna play into your delusions or whatever. And she's like, fuck you. And she takes the book and throws it in the fire, and he catches on fire.
Do you know why he caught on fire
No, I
as
don't.
opposed to her? Because like the first time she puts it in the thing, she starts to catch on fire.
Yeah.
So do you know why he catches on fire?
No, I don't. Why?
I
was
saw an
actually
interview
confused
with
about that.
Ari Aster, and he said again because he's the demon of mischief. He just that's just what he does. He fucks with
Like,
everybody.
just no.
Yeah.
I think the cruel joke is that the either of them thinking that they could affect it in like it's almost like they're getting
That's a good
off
point.
on them thinking like they can
That there's a glimpse
make
of
an
hope.
effect either way.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, even
Yeah.
if she threw in, like she could have lit on fire, they both could have lit on fire, and even if they both died, they could both be reanimated to serve whatever purpose needed that needed done. It's like
Yep, and Heyman just chose
you're
her.
yeah, and it's just like you're watching it's almost a comedy to some fucked up being, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a great point.
So now we have another vulnerable host, a woman who has just seen her husband burn alive, and she now gets possessed by the spirit of payment.
Yeah.
Mm.
You see that white light again, that the click noise light too, that echo locative, like bright white refraction, and you see it in her eyes too, obviously.
Yeah, because she's like horrified at first, and the light centers around her face, and then she just goes stoic.
Completely low
Like she's and she's just whatever.
I love that, dude. Her face when oh my god, when she's like screaming and her face is all like her mouth is wide open and she's all sweaty and like, dude, crazy.
And from this point forward, I'm fucked.
It's a scary zone.
This
The whole
is
rest
a
of
scary
it
zone.
is
Ryan
so
doesn't
fucked.
remember
rest of the-
any of it.
What I guess we should ask everybody too, but what is the most like what is the image you can't get out of your head, Ryan?
The smiling man in the doorway.
What's smiling man in the doorway?
Oh,
The
The
naked
naked guy?
smiling man. Yeah, the naked smiling man in
Yeah.
the doorway. That's the worst for me.
I don't even remember that.
Well, that hit me. That and the piano chord. The zip zip zip
Yeah.
zip zip.
I
Yeah.
think that's almost like
How it goes
that's,
faster and
that's pretty
faster.
universal for most of us.
Yeah.
Mine was the combination of her doing the piano chord, and there's like a pan really quickly to like three cultists just standing in that. Like, I hate when it's like you're like, I'm already living in a scene, and then all of a sudden the way this movie did like their like neutral tone and like in the shadows, and all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, I didn't realize that person was right there. Like,
Yeah.
His
it
use
did
of
that
light is
so well.
unreal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
My,
And I don't know if you guys noticed,
Subtle,
but
like
before
I
that
said,
scene,
subtle.
it shows the house all lit up daytime, and it's only for like a half a second, and then it goes
Yeah.
dark, and that's when
Yeah.
all this stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
But when it's light outside, you can see all the naked cultists surrounded around the house,
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No
Like,
fucking
out-
way,
out
really?
in the
Yep,
trees,
I
yeah, out
noticed
in the
that next time.
trees, on the driveway, they're fucking everywhere.
Everywhere.
And then all this shit starts.
I did not even notice that.
Yeah,
Holy
it was
shit.
creepy.
I'm glad I didn't notice that.
Yep.
There's so much shit I missed, but like I caught so much still at the same time because they just put shit in the background.
Yeah,
So
my favorite
this-
is the mom in the corner of the room when
Yes.
he wakes up and he gets up and he's got the broken nose and he's
Uh-huh.
just sitting there and she's just up like fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
when
the
I
top
noticed the
corner.
glare, because I'm like, everyone else is getting scared, and I'm like, there's a glare right there on the screen, and
Yeah, you can barely see her.
I'm like,
I remember
no.
I was with my girlfriend and I was like, oh, and she's like, what? And then she sees it and she
'Cause you can't see
and
it
her
at first.
scream scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
So dark,
great.
and so the son wakes up and he's just in his bed, and it's super dark in the corner, in the left hand corner of the screen. His mom is just on the corner of the wall, just looking at him, standing, or not standing, floating completely still, right? And here's the thing. So he doesn't notice her at first. He just kind of it goes to a different shot, and then you see her like swimming behind him. And Jake, you explained this scene to me.
Mm-hmm.
You said that the swimming scene got to you.
It still gets me.
It's fucked.
That part did not get to me. The
It
swimming
doesn't.
part.
It doesn't get Emily. Emily thinks it looks stupid.
She's like,
She thinks it looks stupid.
Because
I
when
hate
you
it.
when
I
you
hate it.
explain that scene to
hate
me,
it.
and she's so
what
bright. Like it.
you could,
I hate it.
the way you explained it to me, what I was picturing was way creepier than what they showed.
Mm-mm.
Because what I thought when you were explaining to me, what I thought you were saying was that she was on the ceiling, like kind of phasing into the ceiling, swimming upside down, like almost as if the ceiling was water, like, you know what I mean, like which would be way more expensive to animate. But that's what I thought you were, which would look super super fucking creepy if you did it right. That's what I was picturing in my mind.
Yeah.
But when I saw what you were talking about, I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
I do think.
But then,
Yeah.
when she comes at him, because then he goes
From
downstairs
the corner of the room in the darkness.
she's on the ceiling. She screams, runs at him. He runs up, gets in the attic. He's in the attic. He locks the door, and you hear like knock, 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 and you're like, oh, she's just banging on the door. She's banging her fucking head into the fucking ceiling.
Yeah.
Over
So
and over and over
scary.
again, super fucking quickly, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then he starts kind of investigating what's in the attic. There's a naked person in the corner that they don't even address until, holy fucking shit.
Because Katie, did that freak you out?
Yes! Fucking Christ! God fucking damn it! I fucking
So-
fuck.
How did you guys know that it was a piano wire?
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't get that.
I know how.
There's
just
an
wanna see if you
upturned
guys know.
piano earlier.
they showed a piano. I didn't know. They explained it to me that it was a piano wire, but I didn't know it was a piano wire.
There's so when he first goes in the living room and he sees his dad's burned body on the ground, you hear like this bang, and then you can kind of hear the keys, and that's her ripping the piano wire out of the piano.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. There's a lot of sound that if you don't catch it,
yeah.
you don't know, which we will get to later.
The first time I ever heard that was this last time I watched it.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't wait to watch this much more times.
Ian, you were gone, but your girlfriend Katie just scared the fucking shit out of me when I was
There's a
explaining
blank
people
screen.
being in the corner of the room, and she literally walked by the screen in the same
the
fucking
darkness.
corner of the room in the darkness, right where the fucking people were in the movie.
Yeah.
Fuck my ass.
Yep.
Ian was playing with kitties.
Yeah, I was playing
Yeah,
with the cat.
perfect.
He's
Sorry.
checked out.
I've been gone. I'm out.
He's like,
But-
I don't even
I
like
don't
this
wanna be here
movie anymore.
Peter's up in the attic,
Went from
and
my
you start
favorite
hearing
movie to
this
my least
like,
favorite movie.
I want
You
to
hear
watch
this-
it again right after this.
Jesus Christ. You just hear like zip, 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 zip. And he
And then
looks
zip,
up.
zip, 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 zip.
Yeah. And his mother is just floating in the air, looking at him wide eyed with a piano cord wrapped around her neck. And she is just like pulling it back and forth, slowly cutting her head off.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just another like sign. Like we were reading about payment earlier. It's like you're gonna get riches and glory and whatever. It's like no, you're gonna get a piano wire through your neck like a
Yeah.
day later.
Jake,
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna
don't make
say.
deals.
I thought you were gonna say it's cozy.
It is.
Yeah,
That-
coziest
obviously, everything. I would put a disc golf course on their land. I'd enjoy that treehouse. The demons wouldn't
Beautiful
bother with me.
house.
I'm already evacuated.
And I guess her death is what evacuated Payman from her. And like once her head hits the ground, you could hear it. Once it hits the
Mhm.
ground, and he's already out the
I
window.
love that.
It
Yeah.
moves from her down to him.
Yeah.
And you get
Right.
that.
Her body
You get the
floats
light
up to the
imagery
fucking
again.
thing.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I was talking about because I missed that the first time. So he sees that, he looks down, and there's three more cultists naked just staring at him in the corner.
And it
That
scared the
you-
shit out of him.
You did see them earlier, but he didn't see him.
Yeah.
But then he sees him and he goes, fuck, and he jumps out the window, which is exactly what I would have done.
Yeah, it was the only
You
option.
said it right
Yeah.
before. You're like, jump.
Yep.
Yeah, I literally
No,
did. I was
because the
like, jump out
door's
the
already
fucking window.
locked. Like, you can't go
Fuck
back
that.
down there.
Yeah,
It's just
fuck
crazy.
that. So he jumps out the window, right? And I missed the head hitting the ground. I missed that. Like the zip, 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 thud. Like I
Yeah.
didn't catch that the first time because I was so horrified at what I just fucking saw. And
There's a lot of that in the theaters too, because everyone's yelling and
yeah,
gasping.
yeah.
And, yeah.
yeah, so then the spirit of payment slowly floats down, inhabits the body. Got fucking that corner where Ian is so fucking creepy. Stop walking from that corner. God fucking damn it.
We moved the pool table. That's the problem.
Yeah, but
I love how when
anyways,
Payman gets into him and you hear him go, like he does the click.
yeah,
Mhm.
click,
Dude,
right?
so good.
So yeah, which was jarring to me because I was like, "What the fuck?" Like Charlie, like what? And then, so you see the body floating up into the treehouse.
That to me was the creepier, like swimming floating scene from her. Was that like I loved how that was like a well lit creepy floating scene where it's like your perspective never changes. It's just a fixed like
Yeah.
scene, and you just see that like it so much of this movie reminds me of like a Rembrandt or like a Renaissance like painting, like an oil painting, where it's such a good play between the shadows and the forced lighting that it's just so good.
Right. And so he climbs up there, and the first thing they say is like, Charlie, I know you're scared because it's Charlie in there, but they explain who this person is, who this soul actually is. Like, you are Payman, you are this demon lord from hell.
We are your
And-
followers.
Yeah, and you can kind of see it all start to click, like in his head. Like he's like, oh, okay. And all these people are bowed down before him. You see there's like this like statue kind of with the head of fucking the little girl Charlie that's like decomposed and shit. And then you're looking at all like there's a bunch of like cultists that are all bowed down, but some of the bot like there's like the headless like grandma like
and the mom, yeah.
and the mom are like both the grandma and the mom are bowing down headless. That was the desecrated grave.
Yeah.
Was fucking the reason why the grave was desecrated, because they dug that shit up for some reason, cut off her fucking head and put her bowing down to this shit.
Kept her in
'Cause she gets
the
the riches.
attic for a while. Just
Yes.
That's-
Yeah.
they should have
Yeah.
had a
And-
better place to keep her. Why did she have to be in the attic? Because she's in the same house as everybody.
Yeah.
I think-
There's no
I think
freezer.
he loves to
directly
fuck with
above.
people.
Directly above
Yeah.
Peter.
Peter?
That's my guess.
Oh, good
Oh,
call.
my
yeah.
assumption.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of like explain like who you are, Payman, why you're here, what we want you to do for us, like kind of like please, like, you know, like, bless us for serving you and inflict your will upon the world. And
It reminded me of like the coronation of like a pope too, like to where it's like it's kind of odd, like you give a guy a funny hat, and I wonder if a pope has ever felt like the same weight on his shoulders, like what the fuck. Like I guess it's a different path you get to that point, but eventually you're just standing in front of a bunch of people who are like, wait, I'm like the voice of God, or like I'm like your like main spiritual guy.
Yeah.
Like I wonder if there's that. And I just started like running through that to where I'm like, I wonder if anybody in that, like obviously this is like a different form of ritual, like to where it's based on inversion. Like a lot of this like demonology is just an inversion of ecclesiastical magic that was already around, like old Jewish or Christian like rituals, like we've talked about before,
Yeah.
like just turned on their head and inverted to where like the Holy Trinity would be inverted, or like these staples in normal, I guess that's even weird to say, but like more mainstream theologies, it's like all that just flips on its head and they're like, how about the reverse of that?
Yeah.
But I wonder how like popes would feel just being like, I'm just a guy in a funny hat with a bunch of people who are like, well, you're like king shit now. And you're like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, you guys
and
saw
all
it, too.
that sort of blasphemies.
It's a little guy.
In the treehouse on the wall, right next to the statue, is a picture of the grandma, and it says Queen underneath
Yeah.
it. So
Uh-huh.
Haman is the king, and she's the
Yep.
queen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
she's referred to as Queen Lee.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, dude. And that's the fucking end, right? And god damn it, what a fantastic, awful, fucking horrible movie that never should have been made.
Bravo.
That's
Like,
the fucking end.
My life
fucking-
is better for it having been made.
Yeah.
I fucking love it.
Yeah.
I'm reliving it right now. Like, I have to go to sleep tonight. I have to work tomorrow.
You
Like,
did
fuck.
you did a great job with the walkthrough. I can't believe you really like took in as much of the movie as you did. I mean, it is burned into my brain too, I guess. But like
Yeah.
for someone who is
Well,
hard by it.
I think the most important thing is that we've traumatized Ryan enough for
Yeah.
him to be empty enough for Payman.
Yeah.
For our dear
yeah.
Lord Payman to
yeah.
inhabit
You're
his
What the
body.
fuck?
You're weak now.
Are you
Everybody,
guys
now we're
trying to
gonna start
fucking?
Hail payment.
Are you trying to make me a
Hail
host for fucking
payment.
payment right now?
Hail,
No, no.
Craig,
Hail Craig.
Hail Craig. Hail Craig.
Craig.
you just become.
We're never. By the way, I don't. We say Craig a lot. We've said Craig on the podcast. We're never explaining what Craig is to the listeners.
No, I thought about that. I was like, will we someday?
No.
Craig is our
No.
producer. You,
That's as far as we're
you
gonna
can
go.
cut that if you
Craig
want. You're the
Band.
editor.
No.
Craig band.
Without further interruption, let's celebrate and suck some dick.
Are we doing the blowjibber thing?
Fuck yeah, we
Oh,
are.
shit.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, she didn't.
I
She wasn't
think-
paying attention at all during the review. All right. Well, let's start with Ian because Ian always gets his taken away. So, Ian, what do you think is blowjibber of the week?
So this was Annie said this, and it was right before she performs the seance with Peter and the dad, and she says, "My friend Joan taught me how to do this."
That's
Nice.
good.
That is a good one. That's a good one. All right. Ryan, do you have one?
I do, but I can't put my fucking notebook.
My God, I'll find someone else then.
Yeah.
Parker. Parker, do you have
All
one?
right. Yeah, this is a quote by Annie. She says, "There's a body. I think it's my mother, but I can't tell because the skin is all black and she's distended. But her head,
Ooh, that sweet,
her
sweet
head,
head. ...
is fire."
All right, I found my notebook.
Okay.
It's are all of our quotes Annie? Because mine's Annie too.
Mine's Annie. And
yeah,
I think we have the same one because I think you brought it up in the.
I did. Yeah.
Oh
okay.
shit! I'm gonna tie my horse to you then.
Okay. All right. So me and Jake have the same one then. It's
I think
it's
I'm gonna
when-
vote we do.
Yeah, it's when Annie's like she gets on top of her fucking son in the bed and she's like, "Get up,
Yep.
sweetheart. We're gonna try something."
I want to try something with you.
That is good.
Can you get up,
Actually,
sweetheart? I want to try something with you.
Those are both better than mine for sure.
Yes, I can.
All right. Emily, do you have a guess for blowjibber of the week?
I do. It's when Charlie is in the classroom and the teacher says, "Do you want to finish your toy after the quiz?"
All right. Well, the votes are in, and here is blowjibber of the week.
Come on, Peter. Wake up. Yeah. Wake up. That's your suit. Do you know if your sister slept in her room last night?
That's in the very first scene. That's like
I
the
know.
third line.
I just wanted to get it done with.
Oh, did you hear that? Did
Oh,
you hear that
good.
last part?
No, I didn't.
There's
Replay
always
it.
the
Replay
last
it.
part.
There are nuts in that.
There aren't nuts in that, are there?
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yes,
So
didn't
there
hear
are.
it.
Oh, no.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Good.
he says it really
Drop
quiet.
it in.
So,
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It
so,
wasn't
Fucking
as
amazing.
gratuitous as some of your scenes. Some of your scenes, I just want to die when I
Oh,
re-listen to
absolute-
the podcast. It
The
just goes on
trick
for
or
so.
treat one.
I'm
I think
driving.
it is.
It goes on so long, and you do it twice in the trick or treat one. You play it twice.
Oh, the Gatling gun one,
Dude,
the machine gun.
it's funny, but I'm like, I didn't hear it this well during when we were actually doing the podcast.
Oh, when I dropped in the actual audio of it,
Oh, it's so.
it's very
juicy.
very abrasive.
I think I mentioned, I'm like, this is gratuitous. This is a lot.
I have to close my
We
eyes,
work
and I've
hard
been
here.
listening to them while I'm driving, and I can't close my eyes while I'm driving.
You literally made
don't
mention-
have
Blowjob
nightmares.
sound.
You
but-
were like, I took off my headphones for that.
And then we had to listen to it again.
It tracks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Think
fucking
about
awesome.
Jake though. Jake has to sit there and scroll
Yeah.
through these
I have
poor
to watch
runaways.
all these pornography videos
Oh, I'm
with no
sorry.
boner, listening for the perfect blowjob sound.
Well, then, like,
It's
keep a boner
it's
next
very
to you.
taxing on my soul, and I feel like any time payment comes for me because of all this pornography I've taken in.
Yeah,
I
you're way
feel
too
like-
vulnerable, man.
I feel like Payman will reward you for your service.
With
Or,
gold and cum.
X2.
Mostly come.
I know these names better than I know my own grandmothers.
That works so well with this movie.
That works great.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
So
great.
what time are we at, Ryan?
We're at 2 hours.
All right. Do you want to
Well,
do another
we
game
did-
or
We
Spin
didn't
the
take
wheel.
a break. Let's just spin the wheel. We'll just skip
let's
the game.
just spin the wheel? All right. So
My turn.
So this week,
mean-
Emily is the last person to be on the to have her choice taken or selected, and so this week she gets whatever she wants,
Yeah.
and so she decided to go between Infinity Pool and Barbarian.
I couldn't
So-
make a choice, so we're just gonna
Yeah.
spin.
Can you roll on that?
between two of my
Yeah.
choices.
Oh,
if
nice.
You
Great.
can put as many choices as you want.
I
So
could've
it just
chosen one.
That gives Parker a chance to lose too, which is a great like.
Yeah, because
mean-
Parker wanted Barbarian, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you lose or not, you have to come back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm down.
All right.
You're
All right.
always welcome back.
all right. Let's spin the wheel. And it is Barbarian.
Yeah, all right.
Oh shit!
I've been voting for this one for a long time
Nice.
too. So
Barbarian.
I'm not a huge fan of Infinity Pool, so that's great.
Man,
it is Infinity Pool's a hard watch, and I think it's excellent. But
yeah, not as good as Possessor.
I'm
but-
looking
There's-
forward to watching both.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, at least you guys
Um,
don't have to spend money to get this one. This one's just on HBO or Max
Is it?
now. Sorry,
Max.
don't mean to
Yeah.
date it.
unless
Also,
you-
whenever you can't find one, a lot of times you can just rent them on YouTube for like $2, $2 or $3.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's usually what I do.
I did that until Ready or Not, and Ready or Not you can't, and I got it the ending spoiled for me on YouTube
Oh,
by searching it, and you can't
Oh.
rent it on there, and I was pissed.
lame.
so-
Yep.
Parker,
It happens.
since we didn't do an actual normal wheel spin this week, do you have a secondary movie that we will throw in pro bono as an option next week for when we do our
Oh
wheel
man.
As an offering to Payman.
as an offer?
I mean, I would say the Wreck movie if you're good with watching subtitles, but if not,
Yes.
I could put a different one.
The Spanish Wreck.
Oh, Wreck.
Wreck
Okay.
is unreal. The second one I think is even better, but you got to
They're
do the
both
first one.
good.
Yeah, they're
Alright.
both so good.
All right,
Yeah,
so
that's
we'll
fine.
throw Wreck in the next wheel then.
Not Quarantine. Wreck.
Yeah, Quarantine sucks. Wreck is legendary.
Yeah. All right. Well, I
right,
guess
cool.
we'll be back next week with our review of Barbarian.
Yeah, for sure. Follow us on our social medias. Twitter at Horrorphobia Pod, Our Instagram is Horrorphobia Podcast. Facebook is Horrorphobia: a spooky movie review podcast. And our Patreon is patreon.com/horrorphobia. If you donate $1 a month to us, you get to be in our wheel of suggested movies
Yeah.
until that gets
Oh.
overwhelming and we'll figure something else out.
And you
Yeah, I'm
can
doing
also,
that. I'm donating.
You can also you can also email us at horrorphobiapodcast@gmail with movie suggestions.
For sure,
We'll
for sure.
Add them
So-
to the list.
Thank you guys so much. Take your dead friend's phone.
Don't
You know the drill.
don't gaslight your family and summon our podcast.
Yes.
Thanks, Parker.
Thanks, Parker.
Thank you,
for joining
Parker.
Thanks for
us.
having me, guys.
Thanks for
Oh,
coming. This was
yeah.
So
fun.
fun.
Hell yeah.
Scary movies are literally my favorite thing.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah,
Horrorphobia.
dude.
They're not Ryan's.
Not mine. All right. Bye.
Oh, love you.
Bye.
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 What's your